I'd never really heard of Harry Garside before the 2024 Paris Olympics, but then I also have pretty much no taste for violent sports. Boxing is just not my thing. I know it's a highly effective diversionary sport for at-risk male youth, but it's not really something that's ever been on my radar. And while Harry Garside is a boxer, it wasn't his boxing that caught my attention recently. It was how he handled his devastating first bout loss at the Olympics. And to quote Harry himself, "Before the last Olympics, I hated myself, but then the relationship I got with myself is extremely good, but I started being too nice to myself." But isn't being too nice to ourselves something that we're supposed to be doing? Look, I'm far from an Olympic athlete, and I did do a lot of competitive sports as a teenager, even got to a national level, and I remember how much of a roller coaster ride it was mentally. When I won, I was on top of the world, but when I'd lose, I would want to hide in a cave and never come out again. It was a bipolar existence of this agony and ecstasy, but in the lead up to any competition, it was a game of a mental and physical discipline that I'm pretty sure I've not been able to replicate ever since, as certainly not as a middle-aged adult human. Like at my peak at around age 16 to 17, I do recall having this killer instinct, I think my dad called it, that it constantly was searching for another technique or another edge or another improvement or another way of being faster and stronger and better than I'd been before. But at some point, that kind of feels like it faded away. At some point, like Harry himself, I started being a little too nice to myself. Now, things are changing fast. Chances are that if you're a regular reader of my newsletter or following my YouTube channel or my LinkedIn, you're a business owner yourself, or you're a sole trader or someone who's interested in that kind of stuff. And given there's now, well, about 14,677 of you on the newsletter, I'd say that's a lot of people, but estimates show that the number of freelance or gig workers in Australia has exploded over the last decade. Now, we're talking from around 20% 10 years ago to just over 40% now, which I reckon within 10 years, the majority of our population is going to be working from their ABNs. And this is probably going to come as a shock to a lot of people who assume that the workforce will be much the same as it's always been. I'll go on the limb and predict that majority of us will be forced out of employment into self-employment in as little as 3 to 4 years. And that's because few of us saw this AI thing coming as soon as it did. And even fewer of us have any concept of just how much it's going to impact our jobs and the employment we've got in the next few years. Some are hoping that governments and regulation will save us from this, but most just don't even think about it. They have no idea what's even going on. And that's because we've all become a little Harry Garside lately. We've all got a little too good at being nice to ourselves. At some point, we kind of stopped stretching for more. Think about it. As a baby, we struggle to learn and breathe, then we eat, and then we struggle to make sounds and then crawl. As a toddler, we struggle to speak, to walk, and not to fall over constantly. As a child, we're struggling to learn and do maths and form social connections. And as a teenager, we're struggling with puberty and responsibility, the approach of adulthood. As young adults, we struggle to study and work and wash our clothes and sometimes even ourselves. And then as middle-aged adults, we settle into a bit of a routine, a bit of a rut. We're just trying to get by. The struggle's different. It's not a struggle where we're struggling to do more, to get further. We're kind of just struggling to deal with teenage daughters and sons or mortgages or the stuff that has to be done. Because we've mostly mastered our skills in life or our business or in our careers. Mostly, we've got our finances in order. We've mostly learned how to cook, clean, and pay taxes and clean ourselves. So the struggle to be better, it kind of stops. Well, we think we're struggling, but those struggles are the everyday struggles of just being parents and adults and taxpayers and mortgage payers. But we're not really struggling for that next level, that Olympian style push forward. We're more in a life admin mode. Not a life growth mode, more a life admin mode. We're not really learning much new anymore. We're mostly just optimizing what we already know how to do. It's not really until we reach retirement that we have to learn and struggle to deal with new things again, that the endless supply of salary and opportunity seems to have ground to a halt. When things are good, we are very good to ourselves. We're very nice to ourselves. We can chill a bit, relax, work from our momentum and our gained skills we've already got in our bag. But at some point, that momentum stops. The gained skills we've spent a lifetime earning, they're kind of obsolete. We retire, hopefully with enough money or a chunky pension to support us through to death, though that's looking more and more unlikely as many of us will have those things. But God, it sounds a little bleak, I know, but the alternative doesn't sound very glamorous either. It's not very hard either. It's just not cool. I like to think of it as more of an adventure, but just not an exciting one. It's definitely, okay, it's a boring process, but it's an adventure you're going to go on to. And that's simply about keep learning new things. It sounds so simple, I know. Yet so few people do it. They graduate high school to go to university or trade school to graduate from there to work at a very defined and very specialized job and then stop. We treat ourselves too nicely. We lose the spark to compete. We grow tired of new things. We get nostalgic about some invented memory of how things were. We put on weight. We sit down more. We stop trying, or we could always just not do that. I'm not suggesting that you throw in your career and your mortgage and your kids at 52 years old and go back to university. Most of us could never afford to do that, but you could do something a little less dramatic, like watch a YouTube video about a topic you're curious about, or pick up a business book at an airport and read it on your flight, or do a quick online course from a business influencer online, or maybe even study a quick free online TAFE course in that spare time that you do have. You've just convinced yourself you don't because you've given priority to other things. It doesn't have to be life-changing or earth-shattering in the same way that not every business is going to change the planet. You can just start by learning a few new facts about something you're interested in. And that's the beautiful thing about learning new things. The learning bug bites you. Like it did with my dad. He's 81 years old. He will spend as much as 2 to 3 hours a day on the internet just reading blogs and watching YouTube videos about things that happen to interest him, from modern history to genealogy and the genetic origins of dogs and cats and how his local area formed geologically. He looks forward to sharing this information and all these new findings when I visit town, and with my mum, who's probably sick of hearing it by now. But you know what? It's given him a whole new lease on life. 5 years ago, Mum and I, we were concerned that Dad was in the early stages of dementia. His days since retiring had not really involved a lot of variety or challenge. He didn't go anywhere, had no friends, wasn't interested in anything else other than his garden and picking the dead leaves off his roses. I guess at least he was physically active, but he's a different man now. He's still a hermit of sorts, much the same way I am, but since I bought him a tablet computer and updated their home laptop, he's become this voracious reader and watcher of videos. He started learning again. His mind became active, and all those signs of dementia that we were worried about have almost completely gone. Like, he's still 81, but he's brighter and more conversational and more excited about learning and about finding something new and sharing it. The internet has made his golden years shine that little bit brighter. But learning does come with a little bit of hurt and pain and uncertainty. But in order to learn new things, he had to go through a cognitive dissonance of sorts. He had a very set collection of opinions on things like climate change and politics and immigration. But those opinions, they were forged through his upbringing and then reinforced through constantly listening to talkback AM radio and watching pay TV news broadcasts. But as he started reading and watching more online videos, his feelings about a lot of things seem to have shifted. He's become a bit more concerned about how we're treating the planet. He's started to see the value of immigration and the infinite variety of humanity. Even his politics are shifting away from hardline slogan-based politics to positions that require just a little bit more thought and consideration. He doesn't just believe everything that he sees on Sky News anymore. In fact, he's watching a lot less of it. His mind is being renewed and I'd say rewired too as part of this process of new information coming in. Simply, he's he's become a more intelligent man. And he's become a lot more pleasant to talk with as well. He loves sharing what he's learned. He loves to show us what he's found. And most importantly, he's not repeating these same stories from the past that he was stuck in a loop of sharing with us for the last 20 years. That's a story of an 81-year-old man who decided to stop being so nice to himself and challenge his thoughts and opinions. Now, as a 50-year-old man myself, I'm once again learning new things from my dad. And it's the most beautiful thing to find myself as a student of my father again. It started with him being a little curious about something. We added a touch of technology with the tablet and the new laptop, and then it became a challenge for him to learn something new. And now I have my father back. It took Harry Garside a devastating loss at the Olympics to stop being so nice to himself. Now he's got a big rebuilding journey to go on now. Don't let AI-induced obsolescence come knocking on your door before you take a little bit of time to start learning some new things. I'm Dante St. James.